The economic slowdown we're seeing in Nigeria and how it impacts your money. An economic slowdown often puts pressure on your pocket. And joining us to discuss managing your money in a downturn is Nimi Akinkugbe, financial planner and CEO at Bestman Games. Thank you so much, Nimi, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, I think it's a really pertinent discussion right now when you look at what has happened. I think a lot of people have been caught unawares in terms of how quickly the Naira fell and the impact, and now government is talking about austerity, etc. So going into an environment like this, what would you say to somebody who is looking at the uncertainty and needs to manage his money?
Well, I think we should start by talking about financial planning and what it is and how important it is, because we talk about it all the time, but a lot of times we ignore it. And it is having a financial plan in place which is going to help you cope with economic shocks and uncertainty. But if you have nothing in place, you're really caught on a back foot. So what can people do now? If you were one of those that have been planning, you would have had a diversified portfolio. So usually assets act differently at different times. So if you had cash, you had bonds, you had some foreign exchange, you had stocks and so on, real estate, then if one asset class performs in a particular way, it's unlikely to affect the other and so on. But if you're suddenly caught in a situation where you haven't got any savings at all, that's where the problem starts. And we all do need to cut back. I think there's so much waste in our lives. We have to start to downsize our lifestyles, look at where all the waste is coming from and adjust yourself accordingly.
And for those who are not so willing to adjust, the temptation is to borrow. And if you look at the markets in Nigeria right now, those opportunities are there. So the banks are issuing credit cards. And
interest rates are likely to go up. So really, I would say you should be trying to pay down your most expensive debt and not increasing your debt. You really should be trying to pay down your debt, unless you have access to cheap funds, which is very, very rare. But really, at times like this, we all need to look for ways to earn additional income. I really believe that we all have skills, talents that we've just taken for granted, we've never done much about. This is the time to sort of look inwards. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? What can you do to earn some additional income if you don't already have passive income in place from rent or dividends and so on? I mean, I was talking to a young man recently. He's a graduate. He couldn't find a job. And he started working as a waiter. A waiter? But an outstanding waiter. Excellent, punctual, responsive, smart, and now he's got a team of 8 colleagues of his. So he's created a business out of that. Yes, we've all got to become entrepreneurs. We really have to. It's not just a Nigerian issue. The whole world is facing unemployment challenges. So it's not like when I graduated, I just knew I would get a job. It was almost automatic. You just left school and you got a job. That is totally different. Things have changed, so we have to all look inwards. And we have a problem here. It's almost cultural, keeping up with everybody else. Instead of having a financial plan where you have your own goals, your own aspirations, which you're trying to meet, you're looking at what everyone else is doing. That puts a lot of pressure. There's a lot of peer pressure here, which makes us spend much more than we really should be spending. But if you have a plan in place, know what you want to achieve for your children, your family's education, a home, then if you're focused on that with that plan, you're less able to be distracted by what happens around you. In terms of cutting back, what ideas can you share there? Because I guess that's the reality. Until I can maybe focus on that night job and get a little more income. We need to budget. I think budgeting is the first place to start. Where is all your money going?
And that's something really missing in our lives, right? Yes,
but we need to start doing that. It's such an old-fashioned thing. People think it's tedious, but we all need to go back to the good old-fashioned budgeting. How much are you spending every month? You'll find if you track your expenses for the whole of February, you'll find quite a bit of waste. Is it your telephone calls that are costing you too much? Are you spending too much on utility bills? Can you cut back? Just literally the basic cutting back on your lifestyle expenses.
And in terms of the financial markets, in terms of products to deal with a downturn, I think, I imagine that there should be some form of insurance.
Yes, there is insurance, but the thing about insurance is you're supposed to put it in place long before the crisis. So if you go to a company and I mean, one of the saddest things about what we're going through now is it's inevitable that some companies will have to lay off hundreds of staff. So people are going to lose their jobs. If you had already had in place an income protection insurance, which does exist in Nigeria, that would have helped. But you can't go now to insurance companies now and put
the
that
risk
in
is
place.
higher,
The risk
and the
is
premium will be a lot higher.
Exactly. So there are protective policies, but you really have to cut back and look for ways of earning additional income. I think that's very important. Some people have to sell assets, sadly. And the other side of the coin is that if you had been prepared, every economic downturn, every economic challenge presents fantastic opportunities for those who are prepared. Because people are going to have to sell assets in a fire sale, property, stocks, and others will have a chance. Exactly. So this is an incredible time to be investing in the stock market, mutual funds, not putting all your eggs in one basket, but continue to invest. The worst thing you can do is say, oh, you're so worried about what's happening now and panicking, and then staying out of the markets, because there are great stocks out there that you could pick up at decent prices. Panicking is probably the worst thing you can do, because that makes you overreact and act in a way that isn't particularly right for your own particular situation.
I think there's really value in this education, especially even from when we're really young. And it's not something that's been really instilled in our culture, but I do see that is changing in some other countries. I hear, for instance, in the UK, that is part of the curriculum.
Yes, and it's fantastic. In Nigeria as well, the central bank and SEC are trying to promote financial literacy. A lot of the banks are involved in major financial literacy initiatives, because if you can empower people from the time they're young, then they have a much better chance of having a secure financial future than just learning through their mistakes.
In terms of a financial planning industry, I think that is something that I think a lot of people would like to see. So perhaps people appreciating the value of planning for retirement. We have a pensions industry going now, but I think everything still needs to come together. And can you just speak about that opportunity here, and what do you think is likely to happen going forward?
Well, a lot of companies are coming together to try to set up a financial planning profession, where you can actually have a financial planner who will look at your own particular finances and guide you through your financial life. That is not happening here now. So people go to their banker, their stockbroker, who really don't have the total picture of the estate plan, the insurance planning, the real estate planning. It's a whole financial, there's so many different parts to it. But it's coming, and we're doing a lot of work in that space. Right now you have a lot of information in the media, television, radio, and we do a lot of seminars. You know about the Monopoly game, which helps. We do a lot of that in schools. We take financial planning to schools and so on.
This is clearly going to be a tough time for some families, and I think it's important for people to appreciate the emotional pressure that they will be under, and in terms of just getting through this. Can you speak to that point?
Well, everywhere in the world, financial crisis or financial tension is one of the greatest causes of problems in marriages, leads to divorce. You'll find one of the largest causes of divorce is money matters. So as we go through uncertain times and challenges, we should all bear that in mind, because emotions are going to change. People are going to get desperate. People are going to be so desperate that they do get duped. There's going to be a lot of people coming to you saying, oh, they can double your money, or they can give you this incredible
So we need to look
return.
out for
we
that.
need to look out for that.
So those
but
things
families should be careful, and communication will help a lot at times like this, where maybe the primary breadwinner loses his job or loses her job, and you could have a lot of tension. So don't make your situation worse by having those sorts of emotional challenges because of the financial challenges. But really, one thing we must remember, it's not all about money. Sometimes you can get so overwhelmed by all that's happening, but what really matters? What really matters? It's about family, it's about friendship, it's about fellowship. So we shouldn't sort of lose sight of the reality and what matters to us in our lives and get so overwhelmed by some of these challenges if we can.
Very interesting thoughts you're sharing there. Okay, let's focus a little bit on, I think, something which people have said is very intoxicating when the markets are going up, but really devastating when they're going down. That is debt. So let's talk about that, because some people are in debt. How do you deal with that situation right now?
Well, if you can, you need to try to pay off the credit card debt, because that is just devastating. The interest rates are just so high. Sometimes if you have access, fortunately, sometimes they're lucky enough to have some family that can lend them money without exorbitant interest and so on. Otherwise, they need to get extra income. You need to find a second job. You need to work at weekends, look for ways to earn more money. and you might need to sell some assets.
Right.
Some people are living in a part of town that they really cannot afford to live in.
Right.
They need to downsize, move to a cheaper property, and pay less rent. Some people are driving a very expensive, it's just literally the basic things that we do. You're driving a car that you cannot afford. It costs 8,000 naira to fill the tank. You may need to do something about that and reduce your costs that way.
Right.
Some have children in very, very expensive schools, not because they can afford it, but because their peers are sending their kids to such schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you just have to cut back, because debt, if you don't control that debt, and you have a mortgage, say, you could lose your home, you could lose your car, you could, you know, so it's very, very important. And there are certain things that you can't afford to stop doing. If you have health insurance in place, or insurance for your home and property, you don't want to stop paying those premiums, because if something goes wrong and someone falls sick and you suddenly have huge medical bills, you don't want that to happen. So the things that you can't afford to stop doing are making sure you maintain the assets that you do have.
All right, so instead of going for that vacation, pay down the credit card.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Thank you so much, Nimi. Thanks for joining us, Nimi Akinkugbe, financial planner and CEO at Bestman Games, giving us some perspective on how to manage your money in an economic downturn.